Welcome to the Top Floor Podcast. This is the Denver chapter. Paul, I think you're lucky number 9 on
Number
the
9.
episode. Yes.
Woo! All right. Fantastic.
My birthday's in September, so I was like number 9.
Excellent.
And
it all lines up.
It does. It does. Mr. Paul Tamburello is the owner and founder of Generator. Thanks for being here, Paul.
Thank you for having me, Darren. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. And I appreciate that we're both standing. So for those watching,
yes. I'll try not to do too much of that, and I'll actually try to look in the camera rather than just at you. Not that you're not, just a handsome guy, but yeah. That's what I'll try to do.
I appreciate it. Let me open the floor. Introduce yourself, please.
Well, again, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to be here. I'm a Denver native and really proud and love our city of Denver, and have done many things over the years in my advanced age. But right now, I'm the owner, founder of a company called Generator, which really has a lot of different multifaceted aspects to what we do. And we, everybody's like, well, what do you do? And it's really hard to honestly explain. I can go into some more detail in terms of what our focus is right now, but really I would say it's about, generating energy around ideas. And it's about trying to create these moments of surprise and delight through that energy. And whether that energy is in, real estate development, which is some of what we do. We do a lot of adaptive reuse where we're trying to bring old buildings that have either been literally dead or underutilized back to life in a new way. Second thing is we do brokerage for people where we don't really look at ourselves as salespeople. We look at ourselves as advocates in terms of working with people who are really trying to find a home for their family, that nest, that place. And so we have a brokerage. The other thing we do is we have a distillery called the Family Jones here in Lower Highland neighborhood. And, that for me is all about, you asked a question in advance of this, what problem are we trying to solve? And really that piece is all around, bucking the trend of mass production. What we do in our distillery is all, slow process, handcrafted, locally sourced grains as much as possible. So it's all about kind of, if you're familiar with the slow food movement or even the slow money movement, I would say some of those are some of the principles that we really try to work with there. And then the last thing, it's so funny, this is probably what most people know me for anymore these days, is Little Man Ice Cream, which, if I had to say what a problem we're trying to solve there, it would really be around creating an incredible and positive experience for young people in their first job. We like to say we're a youth leadership company that uses ice cream as its vehicle. And we're constantly, developing those, systems and processes and, all those pieces at Little Man, and the team there is just incredible. So, that's and then we do all kinds of other fun little things. But that's it.
All right. So you said something I find real interesting. A youth leadership movement, I think, is what you called it.
Well, I don't know about movement. I think I said company.
Okay.
I in a previous life, I worked with kids a lot. For about 12 years, I was a youth minister. And always felt that it was such a privilege to work with young people. And I know any educator out there right now working with kids will say the same thing. And it's not just kids. It's like, really, if you're in an opportunity or in a place of leadership to work with people in an educational format or leadership format, it's such a privilege. And so we have really adopted this philosophy at Little Man of, we want people to have, the people that come to us, to have an amazing first job experience. We're typically, that first destination for a 15, 16-year-old applying for their, first thing. And how do we do that? What's our hygiene like? What's our fingernails like? What's our hair like? How to dress, how to speak, how to overcome crisis, the team there has just built this robust sort of program. And again, we're always trying to work on it and improve it. And so, yeah.
I really, I appreciate that very much. As you're telling that story, there's a number of things that went through my brain. Number one
Mhm.
is I've got two step kids, 15 and 17. The
Nice.
15-year-old has not yet worked a real job. She's been a babysitter, but she hasn't had a work for a boss yet. So I
Right.
think about that newness. I also thought about three stories of my own through corporate America, one of which was my first, maybe not my first real office job, but one of the first ones. Like honestly, the lesson was I didn't know you could attach things to a meeting invite. And so I'd send the meeting invite, but then I'd follow with an email with the attachment until someone taught me you could do it. So the whole point of sharing that story is,
Yeah.
right, when you talk about 15, 16-year-olds about hygiene and fingernails and how you show up in customer service and all that stuff, like those are real life lessons that no one's going to teach them until they have an opportunity like you provide them.
Yeah. Well, that's, just the idea of the root of the word hospitality being hospital, right? It's supposed to be a healing experience when they go to the Family Jones and sit down and relax and have a cocktail or something to drink, or they go to Little Man. Like I always tell the young people, you never know. Ice cream is one of those self-soothing things often. We'll get people in the middle of the day who will show up, and we've had people, you could just tell they're maybe just come from the hospital where they just lost a loved one.
Mm.
Maybe they're like, you just never know where people are at. And for a 15-year-old or 16-year-old to learn to be attuned to that are some of the things that I think we're trying to teach um, and learn ourselves every day. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I say I love it, and it's one of those lines that I use often, and I don't use it without meaning.
hmm
It's tremendous. That story is tremendous. I mean, as you closed your eyes, and I am sure envisioning that image of being at Family Jones or being at the ice cream shop and having that experience. I mean, it's powerful, visceral, beautiful.
yeah. Yeah, one of the people who, I've been very fortunate to get to know over the years is Justin Cucci, the owner of Edible Beats, the restaurant group, which owns Root Down and Linger and all these really amazing restaurants. And he always talks about it like that, it's like people are creating a movie every day and you are entering into their movie, right? And it's sort of like he can say it so much better than I can, but that's it's a really important thing to remember that we're all in this process of going through this experience of the day. And that encounter with Darren or that encounter with Paul or Sally or John or whoever's working, at any of these things, right? Um, yeah, that can be a healing experience or not so much a healing experience. And I believe the same is true with design. Design can be a healing experience. Space can be a healing experience. All of those things are all part of that hospitable, that that hospitality piece. And I think, yeah, that's a lot of what we do, or try to do, or hope to do.
Yeah. So as you're talking, please don't quiz me. Uh, I probably could take a stab as to what I think the thread is between ice cream, alcohol, real estate, development, rehab. Some others may say or could believe or think that these are rather disparate things, and yet you are a common thread. But I am curious, what is the common thread amongst these various business lines, and why do you do it?
Mm-hmm. Um, I started a nonprofit several years ago. It's called the Grow House, and we originally started as an urban farm and marketplace, an education center for kids around agriculture and, you know, really all about regenerative soil practices and how to care for soil and how important soil is, you know, in our world, in our life, and to every aspect of our life. And one of the hardest lessons I learned, you know, we went into it thinking that, you know, come on, how hard is it? You put a couple seeds in some soil, grow lettuce, like this is really no big deal. You know, I, after 10 years, have such a profound respect for farmers. And um, where that sort of leads me back to your question is that necessity, like farmers are the most ingenious. They see a need and they don't necessarily always, they just figure out how to make it happen. And that, if there was a through line for me, um, you know, you drive by an old building that's abandoned and nobody's wanting to touch it and it's, you know, falling apart. I see an opportunity, right? I see, you know, where we could create a space where somebody could, you know, start their first business. I love working with, you know, all of our property management stuff where we have probably 70 or 80 different business tenants. And these are people sometimes that put their entire life savings into creating a business. Again, I have such a profound respect for that process, that relationship, which at times is amazing and at times can be challenging. You know, but it's that dance that we're constantly going through. And so, um, anyway, I guess I kind of have always been that, even from a child, has been that kid that I saw a need and I tried to create something to fix it or not, or be part of a solution around what that need is. So that's how I got into ice cream, is that, you know, we had this chunk of land between our two buildings and we were like, what do you want to do? And, you know, as I looked around our neighborhood here, I still live right by Little Man, didn't really have like kind of a communal hub or gathering place. And so, you know, that idea of a third place. And so we really wanted to create that. And we did it through ice cream. Ice cream has always been sort of a fun thing for our family. You know, I have buddies that as kids, we would have little ice cream competitions who could make the best flavor and that kind of thing. And so that's really, yeah, that's how it evolved.
So cool. Um, as a shameless plug
Mhm.
for your favorite coffee shop, or one of, you told me earlier you were up early and had a chance to sit and enjoy coffee. Where'd you get your coffee from this morning?
Oh, there, I am surrounded by amazing coffee. But for me, straight a block and a half up the street is Middle State Coffee. And Jay is the owner, Jay Delaros, and they roast all their own beans. He sources all of his own beans. He just does an amazing job, and the coffee is exceptional. So he has two locations in Denver, one on Santa Fe and one here on West 32nd and Clay Street. So yeah, shameless plug for Jay. Woo!
Yes, yes. Hopefully this is going to be okay because I'm going to say it anyway. But if anyone listening goes, tell them Paul sent you and say
Yeah,
hi to Jay.
yeah, yeah. He's a really, yeah. They're good people there.
Just to share a quick thought is one of the reasons I love doing the podcast is I get to meet people and scratch my extroversion itch.
Hmm.
And the way I describe it is I'm usually not the guy you're going to drop into a room full of strangers and I'm going to work the room and everyone's going to be my best friend. That's not how my extroversion works. It works more here having conversations with you, Paul, and others like you. And what I'm always fascinated by is there are people that are making a huge difference in all corners of the world that no one has any idea about, right?
Mm,
I mean, you have an
absolutely.
institution in the ice cream shop, and and people would know that you're the guy behind it or one of the guys, and that's just a small piece of all the things you do. When you
Hmm.
talk about, you know, the hospitality piece of it and the real estate development and these tenants
Right.
that are poor, like you're a big part of a nice slice of the Denver pie. And I think that is, I wish my vocabulary was better. It's cool, but there's a bigger and better word. It's inspiring. I think it's wonderful.
Mm. Well, thank you. I mean, I hope, yeah. that's in some way, I would say, sort of my life work, right? Um, I remember one time I had a teacher, and he said, you know, every person should have a mission statement for your life, like what you're doing. And I sat with it and sat with it, and it evolved. Um, and, what I came up with is that I want to live a life that inspires people to, live a life themselves uh, with a purpose that is a greater cause, right, than themselves, right? That there's something beyond that. There's, to live a life of purpose to a cause greater than themselves, right? That to me is, what I'm striving for. Do I fail at it every day? Absolutely. Do I wake up the next day every morning going, okay, next day, let's go? I love the movie The Milagro Beanfield War. It's an old movie. Robert Redford, I think it was one of the first movies he ever produced. It came out, I don't know, 80s or something. And there's this little old man in the movie. His name is Amarante. And every morning, Amarante gets out of bed. He sits at the edge of the bed and he says, "Thank you, God, for giving me another day." And I don't know. I've always been inspired by that. And I every morning I wake up and I'm like, wow, I get another shot at this, right? So it's exciting.
Man, your mission statement is a lot more impactful than mine. Mine is something like, I want to do what I want when I want. It's so self-centered.
Well, that's you know, that's what they call retirement, isn't
Yeah,
that?
yeah, true.
Yeah, yeah.
What were you just thinking there? I'm curious.
Oh, there's a couple guys who just showed up in my
Oh,
backyard to do some work.
fair enough.
So yeah, I was just looking over at them. So sorry.
No, no,
Got
don't
distracted
apologize.
for a
I
moment.
work as a coach, and one of the things we're
Hmm.
taught is watch your client. Now, you're not my client,
Yeah.
but watch facial expressions, watch
Hmm.
gestures, watch
Hmm.
eyes. And what I have learned is a lot of times when people look up or down, sometimes
And
there's a
they're
thought.
going
Sometimes
somewhere.
there's not two guys
Hmm.
walking into the backyard.
Yeah.
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 What do you do for fun?
Um, you know, People ask me that all the time as well. I do a lot of different things, but I also find what I do every day fun
Yeah.
for the most part, right? Um I'm kind of at a place in my life where, I get to, for the most part, the work I get to do is, what I want to do and I'm inspired to do and enjoy doing and I'm excited about doing. Um, so that is fun. I also, love doing dinner parties with friends. I love having people over. I love, that kind of thing. I like going out on a boat and floating on the water and catching sunsets and that kind of thing. In the winter, I used to be much more of a skier. I don't do a lot of skiing now. Um, I'd say my winter activities are mostly, walking the dog and just, having, yeah, just fun with friends and family in the evenings and things. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a book I read some years ago. Some years ago, the author is Keith Ferrazzi, and
Hmm.
the name of the book is Never Eat Alone.
Yeah.
And one of his things was to host dinner parties and bring otherwise disparate people together to have
Hmm.
a night, not a night out, but a night together. And
Yeah.
it was inspiring reading the book. And I wonder, as you talk about the business or the dinner parties, my mind went to that book, not
Yeah.
knowing if that's what you meant, but that's where my mind went.
I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to host a lot of themed dinner parties where I would say, okay, I'm going to have 12 people come over. The theme is this, this evening, the theme is beauty. What do you find beautiful? What's something that really, I'm working on a project right now where we're just starting it. I'm trying to figure out how it's going to work. So you're the first person I've ever even shared this with. But it's this idea that, um, we don't, the attendance in churches has really dropped off. As I understand it, I don't have any data around that, but as I understand it, it has really dropped off. But I think being cognizant of the sacred, what is sacred, And that's not a deity. I'm not talking about anything like that, but just to be cognizant of what you find sacred. So I've been thinking about this project called Sacred Soapbox, where I don't care if you're 8 years old or 80 years old, you can come. It's sort of like TED Talks that are focused on the sacred, where people can gather on a Sunday morning and you can hear two different talks or three different talks, I don't know. And again, it can be anybody, and they share what they feel to them is sacred, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's nature, whether it's relationships, whether it's the work they do, whatever it is, right? That is, there's a reverence around this idea of sacred. There's a respect. There's a acknowledgement, right? To me, and I just feel like we're sort of losing some of that. I would say maybe respect for the sacred in our daily life. Yeah.
Life seems a lot different today than when I grew up. I was born in 1975, just for a timestamp.
Mm-hmm.
And, my mom was one of those people that made us make church busy on Christmas and Easter.
Right.
But the point that I'm trying to make is, even when she grew up, going back to my mom's childhood, she talked about community was the thing. She grew up in New York City, but she said there was community everywhere, like neighbors and friends and other parents and everything. And then when I grew up in a cul-de-sac, and we had a smaller community, but it's still community based.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that's kind of getting lost these days.
Yeah. I've really been thinking a lot about this idea of convenience, right? We're trading convenience for so many things, right? I went to the public market conference in Toronto last year, and gosh, just, learned about cities who prioritize markets throughout their city, and they're like farmers markets, real farmers markets, not a farmers market where they have candles and booze and jewelry and but they're like where you go and buy food, right? And we don't have that system. We don't have a culture of farmers markets here in Denver. Sadly, I would really love to work on a project that has that focus, but we're trading convenience. We would rather have everybody bring it to us, deliver it at our door, all of that. But then that doesn't mean we really meet the farmer, get to know where our food is sourced from, get to know any of that. We're trading that. Earbuds. I've stopped wearing earbuds when I walk my dog because I'm noticing that it's convenient to be able to listen to Darren's podcast while I'm walking. But most of the podcasts are all about people and relationship and all that, and I'm walking by people and I'm not even looking at them. I'm listening to my earbuds. I'm ignoring my dog. I'm not looking at the beauty around me. I'm just like, I'm listening to some podcast that's going to fill me with some great idea when the great idea might be walking right by me. And so I think there's all this, we're trading convenience for good, solid, quality information. We're trading convenience for so many things. So I don't remember your question that got me there.
Oh,
but
it was perfect.
Yeah.
I'll ask you to indulge me for a second. It's going to take me a hot minute to share this thought.
Mm-hmm.
So the first is, a lot of people know it's not a phenomenon, which is when you buy a red car, you see red cars everywhere.
Right.
I actually called something like Bader Hoffman or something. I forget.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I call them micro themes. And a micro theme is, I read something, a client says something, I see something, and then the micro theme is, in a relatively short time, that theme is repeated.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the point I want to make. I'm listening to Andrew Huberman's podcast.
Right.
He's a scientist. I think he's great. And he's got a doctor named Casey Means. And Casey is all about mitochondrial impact or dysfunction to our bodies and all disease, etc.
Absolutely.
The one thing she was talking about is, in today's world, is how convenience is impacting us in so many ways, such as we don't walk to get our food. We have temperature control. So we don't even get the highs of the heat and the lows of the winter, because inside we can keep ourselves perfectly at 70 degrees or whatever we want.
Right.
We don't walk. We drive everywhere. Right. It wasn't more than 100 or 150 years ago where most of us lived on a farm or at least did some farming for our food. And today, I think she said it's like less than 3% of the country, or maybe the word, I forgot the number, but the stat I don't remember specifically. But the
Yeah,
point being is that a very small population of us farm, make our own food, and especially back to the micro theme that you mentioned is the convenience is leading
yeah.
to us being sedentary. It's fascinating.
It's killing us in so many ways. Think about the choices. I mean, pretty soon, like I have no idea when I go on Amazon or any other stores. You know, I don't go to a store. I don't shop. I just get fed. It looks like there's a lot of stuff out there, right? And if I go down 10 pages and whatever, but uh, yeah, I don't know if those 5-star reviews are real. I don't know if, the best choice. I don't know any. I mean, we're trading convenience and for all of it. And I see it in business, like, um, I think specialty retail will still have a place. But, if you're just general retail, pretty soon everybody's just going to buy their stuff online. I just think the convenience. And I think, what happened with COVID was it taught all us boomers, right? I'm at the tail end of the boomer generation. I was born in 62. And, you know, it taught us how to use the internet, right? Like I can order groceries on for Costco and I can get them delivered here. And I mean, I knew before, but I'm just saying there's a lot of folks that are 10 years older than I am who were like, what? Amazon? What do you do? What? And they had to learn it, right? And now they see the benefits of it. They really, yeah. So,
Yeah. I don't even know what to say after that. But I'm thinking about it. Like I'm listening to this podcast and thinking about my life and how do I operate and the exercise I do and don't do and my laziness and all this stuff. And it's fascinating you bring it up about the markets. And when you
mhm.
talk about, the candles and the alcohol, I think about my favorite farmer's market, which is by my house on Pearl Street.
Mhm.
And yes, there's produce and food to be bought, and there's a lot of tchotchkes and crap. Sorry to the
Mhm.
vendors, but a lot like it's not the farmer's market, it's a market. Maybe that's good too.
And that's probably one of the better markets in the whole city.
It's great.
I mean, that is an incredible market, and does have a lot of food.
It does.
And yeah, she does a fantastic job there. But it is a lot of, there are, I was talking to somebody just last night who said, "Have you ever been to a farmer's market in Palermo?" Now I know that sounds
Mm.
very privileged, and I have been to Palermo to a farmer's market, and it's farmers, cottage farmers, or like we like to call them truck farmers. So these are people who live on the edge of the city that might own 20 acres, but they have sweet corn and pumpkins and squash and broccoli and asparagus and tomatoes, and they're growing all this stuff in their little, but they have a whole market system that they can trust will be there to support them. They got to show up on Sunday and be there and tell people why their tomato is special and what they do to make it special for them. And that reciprocal relationship to me is the piece we're losing, right? I don't know who makes anything that I buy on Amazon, right? And I enjoy the convenience of Amazon. I'm not bad mouthing Amazon, but I worry what I'm trading, right? Um, yeah.
I want to ask you a question about the local farmers or the local people that you work with. But if you'd give me a moment, I feel bad. I called people's stuff crap at that farmer's market, and I want to apologize to our listeners. That was wrong of me, and I feel bad. So hopefully those listening will accept the apology. Wrong choice of words. It's not crap.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I mean, I'm just drawing a blank on the woman's name who runs that market. She does Nicole Jarman, and she curates some really good, I mean, artisans who make handmade jewelry and make they're doing honey and all kinds of amazing things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
we're talking about markets where you go and it is crap. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
but that's
Thank
not
you.
one of them.
Thank you for your
I'm trying
grace.
to help you out here.
No, thank you. Thank you. Foot and mouth. I do it often enough.
Yeah, so do I.
Um, we're getting towards the tail end here. We're not in a quick rush, but I am curious because you mentioned about Family Jones, and
Mhm.
I'm probably not going to remember the exact words you used, but what I thought I heard was local grains.
Mhm.
Did I hear that correctly?
You did. We have several different lines that we carry, right? Um, and as we're growing, right, we're constantly, um, getting our cost inputs and all those things under control. So I would say, um, you know, we're our the percentage of what we produce that uses all local grains is constantly growing. We have some stuff that we source, meaning it's, Michael Pollan said, every act of eating is an agricultural act. And we like to say that every act of, drinking spirits is an agricultural act, right? Everything in that bottle is a fermented grain of some type, right? And that grain is grown, cared for, nurtured, sourced by somebody, right? And we always like to say that, it all starts with the soil. The quality of that soil is, we believe, translates to the quality of the spirits. And so we defined these 8 regenerative principles around, soil management and care. And we work with farmers that adhere to those 8 principles and much more, right? And they're in a process of always dancing with those principles, right? Sometimes you can do a no-till, um, you know, field where you don't till it up, right? You replant things and you plant over it, and it creates a biomass that holds moisture and creates more biodiversity within the soil, which creates, we believe, healthier grains, which translates to better flavor. Anyway, so there's all of those pieces, but we right now, we work with primarily 2 farmers, one in the San Luis Valley and one kind of here up on the Front Range that is just like 5 miles from our distillery. So um, yeah, and they're all just incredible growers, really hardworking people who every day have to, you know, I talk about making spirits as an improvisational art, right? You have to deal with the soil and the proteins and the sugars in those grains, how long it's in the barrel, what the char of the barrel, the oak of the barrel, the atmospheric pressure plays a big part in aging whiskey and some of those things. So it is an improvisational art, but so is farming, right? You're constantly dealing with moisture and pest control and all these things, right? It's a beautiful thing to see somebody doing really well. So yeah, and if I could give it a shameless plug, if you want to go check out one of our farmers, Jones Family Organics, they grow primarily potatoes, and their family has down in the San Luis Valley for years. If you go to any Costco in town, or not Costco, well, they might be in Costco too, but if you go to any Whole Foods in town, they carry their potatoes, and they're beautiful, they're delicious, they're amazing. But what they do is they plant in between crops a rye for us and for other bakers that use rye. And so they're constantly trying to build this rye, a market for rye. And they've started a project called, or them and some other people down in the valley have all started a project called the Rye Resurgence Project. And I would encourage people to go on Instagram and check out what they're trying to do, because, in talking to some of the farmers down in the San Luis Valley, they're like, we might be able to farm another 10 years down here, and then that's it.
Wow.
There's no water left. And part of it is, obviously water shares getting bought up by cities. And part of it is soil management. So planting rye helps the soil maintain moisture, which then feeds the aquifer long term. And if more and more people plant rye, but they don't want to plant rye because they don't think there's a market for it.
Mm.
So we need to do whatever we can to save the San Luis Valley, to find ways to utilize rye in brownie mix, in waffle mix, in bread making. And it's an amazing, delicious product. So we use it for distilling. We
Mm.
make our rye whiskey with it and a couple other products we do.
You immediately brought me back to my childhood talking about rye.
Oh, really?
I mentioned my mom, right? My mom's side of the family is Christian or Catholic, and my dad's side of the family is Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And grandma lived in northern Manhattan and had not had, but knew the bakery that she loved, that we in turn loved, that had the best rye bread. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Took you back. Well, that's good.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you two last questions, Paul. The first
Okay.
is any other shameless plugs or unshameless plugs of companies, yours, others, ways to find you, links, any of that stuff that you'd like to share, and then we'll put it into the links below.
Well, yeah, Family Jones. Come check out our distillery. Ask for the Family Jones at your favorite restaurants and bottle shops around the city, and just know that you're supporting local economy, local agriculture, local farmers. I mean, we're all about, really building Colorado as a specialty spirit destination, right? Colorado spirits really are kind of on the map.
Bless
My
you.
dog's my dog's
Oh, I
coughing
thought that
back
was
there.
personal.
So yeah, check out the familyjones.co. It's not .com, but .co. And then our Spirit House, which is right next door to the restaurant Root Down in Lower Highland. In Lowhigh there, we're literally right next door to them. That's our tasting room. So yeah. So
Okay.
that's a shameless plug. Little Man Ice Cream, yes, come try all of our amazing flavors. And if you've never been to the Little Man Ice Cream Factory, it's on West Colfax, 4409 West Colfax. It's a really fun place, and particularly during the holidays. Like we sort of pride ourselves on trying to be the Willy Wonka of ice cream in Denver, and our factory is very Willy Wonka-esque. But what's even better is when the holidays happen, Lauren Martinez, who is our operations, really our CEO there, it just goes all out, and it's a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Okay. Very cool. All right. Last question for you. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to?
One of the questions that you sent ahead of time was sort of about, just as that could be a question to discuss. Was about ambitions. And that's not a word I typically use, right? As a, like I don't know, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily, like that's not how I define my energy or enthusiasm around something, right? I studied theology and enthusiasm, right? Or the word inspired. So enthusiasm is in theo, which is in that divine space, right? In that space of where it's a transcendent work. It's a labor of giving back to whatever you find the divine to be, right? That passion comes from that connection, that enthusiasm, and you know it when you see somebody who's enthusiastic about what they do. I think they're working. I love going to see musicians who are incredibly proficient. I saw Trombone Shorty recently, and that guy is on another level, right? He is in the divine space when he's playing. So, ambitions are. If I had an ambition, it would be to live in that place of inspiration or in spirit. It's all connected in that way to me. And man, I'm just trying to do it every day and live it and do the best I can at it.
Well, in this short time together, you're a congruent guy. What you just said there very much ties into the personal mission statement. I think that's what you described it earlier as. And then even before we press record, you were talking about ethos. And all of these things are very congruent in the way you show up. So I appreciate you being willing to be wide ranging with me today. I know we did send you ahead of time all those questions, and I am positive I went off script. And you went, and I appreciate that. I thought this was a really inspiring conversation. you got a coolness to you, man. You know,
A
you,
coolness.
you have all of these things going on, which I think the naked eye would wonder how busy you are with all of these businesses and, you know, thriving businesses and growing and all this stuff. And you're
Mm.
chill, you're cool. So I appreciate that.
Well, yeah, what great, I think Scott Galloway, I recently heard him say this, that great businesses are built in the agency of others.
Mhm.
And I had to sit with that for a minute and really understand that. And I sat with my leadership team the other day and I was like, one, I'm fortunate that, you know, I have people that I trust around me to give agency to give them more autonomy to create, and I trust what they're doing, and it's in line, and you know, we're constantly talking about ethos, and so I think that that connects. But I really love that idea that it's so I, you know, I get to do fun stuff, and I have some hard stuff I have to do like everybody else. But yeah, I'm fortunate, surrounded by really amazing people.
It's awesome. Paul, thank you for your time. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Darren. I really appreciate your time and your interest.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.